Lutz, and welcome to another broadcast. This is Dank Live. Dan plus Tank equals Dank. It's May 28th, 2019, and we're doing our broadcast about how to make an abundance-based world. What the problems are out there that have been presented to us by the cabal. What has been going on in the GCR, Global Currency Reset /RV, Iraqi dinar and Zim notes being exchanged for extremely high amounts. That is never going to happen. That it is a big lie. Though the people that involved in it are real people, all at every level of government and banking, highest levels, to know exactly what this was about. Shh, secret to the rest of the world. But these people all become super wealthy. With one of the $100 trillion Zimbabwe notes exchanged at $1 for $1. And, that's, of course, the GNP of the world is 114 trillion in a year. But one of these pieces of paper, you would get all the GNP of the world in 1 year. And there's millions of you. And all this currency would be dumped on the world, and prices would skyrocket, and it would be just the reason why Zimbabwe had $100 trillion notes, runaway inflation. They would never be able to keep up with the people out there that had all these to buy up everything and do everything, and then the people that didn't have the money what would happen to them? Oh well, of course, all the good-hearted people would be there to help by giving them money. Charities and all this, but anyway, not a good idea. Let's move past that. But that's one of the other things. This whole world has been set up by the cabal. From the shadows they operate. And the one thing I want to cover today, which is about the same thing, and I just want to. It's one of the fears that they placed in the world to control the world in a way that made scarcity. So everyone knows about the petrodollar, right? And why is there a petrodollar? Well, number one, they want to take us off the gold standard. Why? Well, gold's too precious. They want to keep it all for themselves. So why have people being able to use it? And they've developed a system to allow the exchange of gold and control the price and take it off the market and so on. But what do they use? They use petrol. They use the gasoline, the energy to control energy. Meant that you controlled money. So they attached energy to money. And then if they control the price of energy, they control the value of the money. So I mentioned this yesterday, is that why is it that the price of electricity keeps going up? And the idea of capitalism and a capitalist system is the prices of things go down after they're introduced into society. People start relying on them. You start building more supply, and the cost will go down. You don't have to reinvent it, right? So the cost of invention is already paid for after a decade or so. But we're already 100 years plus, or probably 150 years of electricity. I have to say, when did Thomas Edison do that? So that's just a light bulb. Electricity existed before the light bulb did. So I guess we have to go back to Benjamin Franklin with the kite and the key, right? I don't think they quite so much was using it. You could literally go back to ancient Egypt with batteries, right? Because they were containing electric energy, potential energy in batteries back then, and probably had light bulbs. And so, they're attaching the dollar to energy, and they control it, right? But the price should be going down on energy, but they want to keep it up. Why? Because they want to make more money off of the energy. So what about nuclear energy? A lot of fear related to nuclear energy. Fear, fear, fear. Be afraid. Its half-life is 150,000 years, and if we have a nuclear blast, it's going to basically be so devastating that nothing could possibly live in that area. So we would literally, just destroy everything on the planet, and it would all just disappear, and we'd never be able to live on it. We'd have to go deep underground or go off world to other planets if we destroyed our world with nuclear weapons. No. Now, maybe this MAD, mutual assured destruction, did have an effect of stopping war from happening. Maybe that, say if there's a silver lining to this dark cloud. Okay, the fear stopped us from beating each other up with nuclear weapons. All right, but there's a more insidious reason why there's so much fear around nuclear. I would like to point out that we had the nuclear bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki go off, and these are thriving cities now. So let's just say 50 years later, they're thriving cities. It's, I don't know exact amount of time, 60 years or whatever, but they've been thriving for quite a while. They have memorials there and, about it and so on. But, they're living there in that nuclear wasteland. No, it's not a nuclear wasteland. So what happened? Did they clean it up? What happened? What all that radiation? Was it just not as strong as their newest ones that could really, really do damage? Or are they lying about the radiation? So I'm gonna bring up a video. It's basically talking about this particular issue. We're gonna go over a couple parts of it, but just to give us kind of some other viewpoints on what's going on with this fear. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, now Galen Windsor, the nuclear scare scam, is a video on YouTube. You can look it up. Here is the channel IEKE, European Climate and Energy Institute. Now let's subscribe. Get notifications. So here the myth of Hiroshima. A free nuclear economy. Here's some other videos just to kind of on topic here, right? I've studied nuclear for 35 years. You should be worried. Okay, well, maybe there's a reason to be worried, but we don't know what that's about. But let's listen to what he has to say. Okay, Galen Windsor. So
back to school. 1950, I applied for a job up there before I'd graduated. And they were in such bad need of chemists, I had a job before I had my degree. And so the last year of my chemistry, mostly English, I did on a bus, riding 25 miles to work in the morning and 25 miles back at night. And I did advanced grammar and business writing and all of those things on that bus. But in September 1950, I got into this thing called plutonium processing when we did it barehanded, without instruments, without coveralls. We had some of the most peculiar acid burns in some of the shirts. I found one of those the other day. It's got acid burns all up the front of it. Plutonium on it too. Amazing. That was normal operation in those days. We ran those facilities and we ran them so well that by 1965, we had separated enough plutonium when it only existed in the parent uranium matrix to a half of a single weight percent, 0.005 weight fraction of plutonium maximum in that fuel. And we processed enough tons of uranium to recover enough plutonium by 1965 to meet the weapons needs of this country 10 times over for the foreseeable future. Now we're talking about a massive amount of work. Hands-on, do it type thing. And there was a couple thousand of us, and we were just happy as could be, just working like mad, making those plants run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in a community that ran on shift work, ABCD shift. The whole community that way. A wartime community, people dedicated to doing a job, and we were doing it, and we did it well. No pretense. Oh, yes, there were. Out in the reactor began to sneak in people who wanted a radiation monitor behind every reactor operator. Why? We know how to make these things run. When we got a metal fuel element stuck and it fell down on the trampoline back of the reactor, we'd go in with our feet and kick it off into the pool, smoking, burning. If you didn't have an instrument, you didn't know it was too hot, so you just went in and kicked it. Finally, along came a rule maker that says, thou shalt not do that. You'll get burned. Oh, I didn't get burned when I did it last week. But you exceeded the limit. Well, where did this limit come from? Turns out that in 1934, the International Commission on Radiation Protection fabricated a limit for X-rays. It was no longer permissible to be burned by them, erythema, reddening of the skin. You now had to keep a limit called 0.2 of an hour per day. How much is that? Well, you've got to have one of these Beckman instruments to read it, and you have to keep time of exposure. You know, there are 4 requirements on this thing: the size of the source, therefore the strength of the source, the distance from the source, the time of exposure, and the intervening shielding to keep from getting burned. Oh, fine. We've been doing this thing for years now, and we've never been burned. Why have we got these rules?
15 years he was doing it.
Yours is not to ask questions. Yours is to do and die.
Stop for a moment there. So, now, from the beginning, they're dealing with uranium, separating out the plutonium, making nuclear weapons, and they've made 10 times the amount they needed, right? And they were doing 15 years. And then what happened? Their regulators came in, created, rules, right, that made no sense to the people that were actually involved in doing it, that dealt with nuclear problems. Hey, the fuel rod is burning up. Okay, well, kick it into the pool. He lived to a very long age, so there was didn't get besieged by cancer or anything else. He wasn't taking iodine. He wasn't doing these type of things. They were just working with it. Was there radiation? Yes. But the question is, what was it actually harming? How was it harming him? So what is the reason that they would want to create the fear about this? Is control. Control of a source of energy that would make energy prices drop. Back then it was probably like 1 to 2 cents a kilowatt. So if there was plenty of energy, economies could move forward without the burden of this extra expense of having to pay for electricity. The huge amounts. Now, I'm hearing, very high prices in say California. It's like 40 cents a kilowatt for things. Now, it might not be across the board. They have this tiered system, but the more you use, the more they charge you. Right? Why? Because it's in short supply. Why is it in short supply? I mean, there's no reason it should be in short supply unless you create the reasons to make it in short supply. And it's all about control and money. And does it help society that the prices are so high on electricity? I know that it keeps the Philippines down. I did calculations here before the Abundance Mine project, right? So the idea behind Abundance Mine is that we would mine Bitcoin. And when I did all the calculations for Bitcoin, I figured unless you're over, interesting thing, $8,000 a coin, which we are right now, and Bitcoin has gone back up. It's now 8,400. It's going up $1,000 at a time, And over the last 2 weeks, it's doing this. So it's more than doubled in value in the last 10 days. So, in doing the mining, unless you were actually getting your electricity costs kept low, down below 10 cents a kilowatt, Bitcoin had to be over 8,000 for you to make any money out of it. Otherwise, you had to sell all of your coin that you mined to pay for the electricity. So I did some investigation about what is the cost and things. So here in the Philippines, if I wanted to see how could I possibly do mining here in the Philippines, and I couldn't. Effectively, the cost of electricity here is 20 cents a kilowatt. It's actually up to 25 cents in some areas, and maybe as low as 18 cents in some other areas. And a lot of it is generated by diesel. Right, there is geothermal, there is dams and hydro, but most of it is done by diesel. And if you take the price of diesel and you get a diesel generator and you're going to be running a diesel generator, the cost is going to basically mean that you're going to have to be paying all for that diesel, petrodollars, right? You'll have to keep that prices up high. So I knew that the expense of electricity here in the Philippines is high, and around the world it seems to be going up. And what is the reason for that? Well, we have to close down all the coal energy plants. That's one reason. All right, coal. Well, there's clean coal, but then they made the standards even more strict, way beyond their crazy limits, forcing the closure of coal plants. They forced the closure of nuclear plants. Oh, you have to use wind. And as Trump likes to say, well, if there's no wind that day, you don't get to watch TV. It's craziness. But the thing is, with the nuclear power, they could build it in such a way that there's a way in which you can actually do it so it actually doesn't generate as much radiation at all. There's a whole method, but that whole line of nuclear technology was sidelined. They didn't do it. They instead use high pressure, and this very dangerous way of creating a danger and way of exploding from this high pressure system that they use. But there was other ways to do the same type of thing that they totally sidelined. So in essence, they made it more expensive to make nuclear plants and created this fear around them so that it would actually stop the production of nuclear energy. And then they also financed the anti-nuclear groups. The money that was presented to these groups, or you say going back even into the 70s, was coming from the cabal. because they knew that they didn't want to have cheap power, and that's what nuclear energy represented. So there's better ways to create it that are not so dangerous, and creating all these high pressure water systems and things like that for creating the nuclear reactions. And there's other ways and the energy, the fuel problem of radiation is not what they presented. And the nuclear waste, quote unquote, was being charging the nuclear plants to take this nuclear waste away, right? Higher cost, charge them to take the nuclear waste away. It's not really waste. It can actually be recycled and reused. And they're storing it. That's a revenue for future. Maybe they're using it already. Where are they storing it? Deep underground. Convenient that they have to dig so far down deep into the ground and store this for, 100,000 years. It has to be stored. Or is that just, a convenient place to put it so it can be put into this vault on this side? Seal the doors. And you look on the other side of the vault, a mile down, and on the other side there's another door that opens, and they take the waste and they use it for the underground cities. It's probably sold it on that end. But, charge them to take the waste away, and then sell the waste as a new nuclear fuel for underground bases. So what we're looking at is basically another sham, another way to basically steal away from us our energy. I mean, our personal energy, using us as batteries to fund and do things that they want to do and run these things. So all of this subterfuge, all of these lies, all the things that they put into place are there for the elite's benefit, the cabal, the deep state. Let's continue. We'll go a little bit further down. There's a couple things to cover. This has a lot of nuance, that we can get into.
Don't you ask questions. If you do, you might disappear. Those who broke the rules didn't appear the next day. Military rule? Oh yes, absolute. What was your appeal? And people you were working with one day, when they weren't there the next day, you didn't go inquire why. You were just grateful you still had your work to do, and you kept right on doing it. Now this is in the United States of America. Well, in 1960, we found out that the materials that we were working with, the thing that we called high-level waste, that if you waited 3 years, these million-gallon tanks that high-level waste went into boiled off 15,000 gallons of water a day. Fairly hot? Oh, yes. This material that if it ever broke a line would seal itself off in the ground within a foot, make its own glass. It wasn't going to go anyplace. We did that a time or two, accidentally, of course. And so we started packaging this cesium-137 in casks and railroad cars like that and shipping it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And they take it out and make it into a barium titanate and press it into a pellet. And those things were so hot that they actually glowed in the dark from the infrared heat. Now, thermo-ionic conversions came along at this time. So you hooked these little heat sources up to thermionic converters and you took electricity out this side. No moving parts. These things went into the SNAP program, And these early snap power generators are what power the underwater transmitters for our nuclear navy. We've got a regular roadmap under the sea. All you got to do is have an instrument that knows how to find it, and then you've got eyes on a submarine. You didn't know that, did you? The power from it came from this material that they now call waste. We processed that stuff and packaged it outside at Hanford. Well, we had rules that said 3R per year is your allowable exposure, that amount of gamma energy that will expose a film pack. But that was for the people that didn't know. We weren't about to follow those rules. We just went ahead and did the job. They send around an investigation slip that says your dosimeter was overexposed 2 weeks ago. What did you do? And they had a cute little form on it that says accidentally exposed to light, and that was the one I always used to check. Because it's the same amount of light. You know, if you get gamma through the film pack, it's the same amount of light as you get when you click the lens on a camera. They wanted to limit us to that. And one day we looked up and they had limited us to that amount of exposure. Then the fun part of the game begins. You say, who limited us to that? Are they powerful? Yeah, they control the purse strings. They live by the golden rule. Them that's got the gold makes the rules. If you like your work, you keep the rules. If you don't keep the rules, you disappear. Sure enough, some of us disappeared. Some of my friends gone. Where'd they go? I don't know. Well, 2 years ago, I started traveling for American Opinion Speakers Bureau, and one of the documents that they had was Major Jordan's diary. A story of shipping the technology and the material that was developed at Hanford in 1944 directly to Russia on U.S. Air Force planes out through Great Falls, Montana, Fairbanks, Alaska, under the auspices of one Harry Hopkins, and with the at least tacit approval of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now what are you going to do? That thing that we have been doing and feeling so good about had been shared at no expense with Russia. You go back and you check the record and you find Russia did not develop their own nuclear atomic weapon until 1949, even when we supplied them the material and the knowledge.
Wow. Does that sound like Russian collusion? Does that sound like Uranium One? A Democrat sharing nuclear with Russia. So it's very interesting, you know, what was the cabal doing? Again, well, they need to have a foe. They need to have an enemy for the military to go up against. Well, we have nuclear weapons. Well, we need a foe. So make one. There, Russia, arms race. It wasn't until Reagan came around that they actually came up with a way of actually controlling the amount, right? And got to a stalemate position with this many nukes on that side and that many nukes on that side. Listen, the nuclear weapons definitely are destructive. It's not what we're talking. We're not talking about the radiation side of this right now. They'll definitely blow up everybody and kill all those people. That's real. But what we're looking at is how they are manipulating the reality of what the truth is for their own game. The game of creating an enemy, in this case, Russia, the same as right now, right? They were trying to make, but put it on Trump as being colluding, right? Even though they were already colluding with Russia. So we have this exactly happening as it happened in the past. What happened during the Clinton administration? They were colluding with Russia and China. They needed to build up Russia. They needed to build up China. They needed to get technology into the hands of China. I remember I was upset at the time with the amount of technology that was being shared with China, right? For the reason that we needed to level out the playing field. We can't. We need to have a nuclear foe, right? We need to. If we're so much stronger than them, it's not fair. Giving tours of our nuclear facilities and armaments and factories to Chinese. I remember the generals coming by for tours, right? So this idea of creating our foes. Well, what's the other foes? Who are the other enemies? Well, the climate. We have global warming, global cooling, weather change is now an enemy. Breathing carbon dioxide is the enemy. So the people that breathe are the enemy, and we have to reduce the population because there's too many of us. The enemy is us. They've stated it. And they just go along. Everyone just keeps going along with it in the apparatuses of government. Oh, we're the enemy. It's okay to kill us off. No, it's not. It's not okay. And we're not overpopulated. We're underpopulated. We have 1 trillion people on the planet, and we'd be fine. If we have short on living space, we can always build up. We've come up with newer technologies for building. 100 stories is going to be small. Should be small. We can have structures going up 1,000 stories, way up into the stratosphere. And along the way, we could build in our own ways of growing food in those systems, capturing energy with those buildings. Put solar on the outside. Why not? Right? Have the differential in between the top and the bottom of the current of the planet be able to generate a charge. So they just self-power just because of their height. So they create the enemies so that they can stay in power, and they can use us as the source of energy to create the situation where we pay them to solve all sorts of. Oh, now we have nuclear waste. Oh, you have to buy the instruments for radiation detection. Create more reasons for you to pay out and create more cost. The more things cost, the more they make, because who's providing the energy is us. We're doing the work, we're putting our time, and they're taking out the benefit. So the free hand of capitalism is not what we have in the world. We have a controlling cabal that creates situations, and under the guise of capitalism, to create a situation that will remove the wealth of the people and give it to the few. And that's what we're seeing here. Create fear, and then they will do that. Look what they just happened with Trump in Japan. A missile being fired by Kim Jong-un, right? Or was it? Maybe, like the last missile test, or the smaller missile, was done by the military, and some wing of the military off running. So Kim Jong-un sent some coded messages, I think, as in this last little bit, because he started basically pointing at Biden and calling him a low IQ individual. Okay, so Kim Jong-un, and then you have Trump agreeing, right? So if you look at it from the standpoint of who's on whose side, Kim Jong-un and Trump are together. The deep state on both sides are what we're fighting. There's still deep state actors in North Korea. Remember when we talked about how the head of Google took off and went to North Korea to work on the servers for their internal communication? Why does North Korea host the servers for the top government officials in America under the Obama administration? Does that make any sense? The deep state bad actors are in all of the countries, and they're all acting in unison. They don't know what exactly to do right now to stop this dismantling of their system. But when there's a missile goes off, and what has Kim Jong-un done? He participates with Trump and acts in the same way. And it starts, in fact, it's at the same, going up against not some of his own people, he goes up against Biden as he's a low IQ individual. It's talking about a swamp monster also. That may refer to some other code, but on the surface of it, you can say, who's on whose side? Does Trump look worried? No, he's not worried about it. Kim Jong-un, immediately sided with Trump, is the way I see it. Anyway, so let's dive in a little bit further. We're going to skip a little bit ahead. Now, I do encourage you to go back and watch this. This is an 1.5-hour video, but we're gonna focus in on a couple other points. I'm going to skip ahead. Let's go to here.
Well, conventional wisdom states that the dropping of non-conventional bombs on Japan ended the Second World War. But author Ward Wilson disagrees with that statement. Moreover, he says that nearly 70 years of nuclear weapons policy has been incorrectly based on that myth. Ward Wilson, the author of 5 Myths About Nuclear Weapons, is with us now. He's the senior fellow at BASIC, that is the British American Security Information Council, and also director of the Rethinking Nuclear Weapons Project. Hello, welcome to the agenda in the summer.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Yeah.
We're going to spend our time today examining the role of nuclear weapons in ending the war with Japan. But just remind us, what is sort of the orthodox view of Japan's surrender?
The orthodox view is that the United States bombed Hiroshima on August 6th, and 3 days later they bombed Nagasaki on the 9th, and on the 10th the Japanese indicated that they wanted to surrender, although the actual surrender was several weeks later. And Americans decided that it was clearly the result of the bomb, and in fact the emperor said in his radio address announcing the surrender that they had to surrender because of a new and most cruel bomb.
So point A leads to B, leads to C, direct line. This is the reason. That's what most people believe.
It's a really simple story, and it fits. And if you look at the facts kind of from a distance, it seems perfectly logical.
Okay. In a general sense, because we're going to talk about this in quite some detail, but in a general sense, what's the other view, the opposing view to that narrative? Well,
in 1964, an American historian published a view that said that it was that the U.S. bombed Hiroshima, even though they didn't need to because Japan was already going to surrender. And so it was immoral for the U.S. to have bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, I'm actually talking about a third point of view, which is that Japan didn't surrender because of the nuclear bombings. They surrendered because the Soviets came into the war.
Okay. How common is this revisionist view? We have all heard, we were all taught growing up and believed that bombing had that ABC narrative, right? One led to next, led to next. How common is the revisionist view in public discourse?
Well, the
revisionist view, which is this, it was immoral and Japan was going to surrender anyway view, has actually been pretty widely discussed among historians and in political science circles and so on. And some people know about it. This new view that it was the Soviets that caused the Japanese to surrender is really very new, just in the last 10 years, and is not very widely discussed.
And that's where that's the view you uphold.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, so now it wasn't the nuclear weapons. So that's news to me, right? Probably news to most people. I kind of remember the other thing. It was they were going to surrender anyway. I kind of remember some talk about that. But all right. But I guess the point is that it's all about controlling the narrative. What they want you to see, what they want you to know, what the cabal has planned, and what they want to basically have people react against, right? And what makes more sense to create fear is that the nuclear bombs were used, and then we now have to have this arms race against a new foe, which is the Soviet Union, right? And who's the one that ended that again? Reagan, right? So we've got who's not in the cabal, of our presidents of modern day history. We're going to basically just say it's Kennedy, Reagan, and Trump. And probably Carter was still part of the cabal in some instances, but more as a pawn, went along with the agendas, but filled the roles as necessary, but maybe not. But that's not really. It's not really hard to get into that, because obviously when we look at the Bush funeral. He didn't get an envelope, so he wasn't a big player. He wasn't, part of the ongoing conspiracy to destroy the Americans' country of the United States and replace it with 5 separate districts and under his control under one of these families, right? We know some of the leaders, we've talked about them. In any case, the fear needed to be put into place, and so having the bombs was going to create this fear. Remember, get under the desk, nuclear scare. If you hear the sirens, get under your desk. Fear, fear, fear. They needed the fear. They want to create fear, just like now they want to create the fear with Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump and Iran. Right? Don't forget Iran and Russia. The Russia one is kind of not really holding up at all, right? It's so now you have Kerry and Obama and Dianne Feinstein all calling Iran violating the Logan Act in the last couple weeks. Just what are they calling for? Why are they calling Iran? Why did they send them all those billions of dollars in cash? Plus, lift the sanctions and everything else. What was going on there? Was it treason? Is it still treason? So they need to create the fear. They need the event for the collapse of the world economy, of the central banking system. All right, let's continue on. I haven't seen this part. I've seen the first part of the video I showed you. I haven't seen this in particular. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and skip ahead to the next part here. Okay.
66 million years ago, a mountain-sized asteroid traveling 10 times faster than a bullet from an assault rifle slammed into the shallow seas covering what is now the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. The immense energy of that impact hurled rocks as far north as Canada, and it vaporized the asteroid,
part of Mexico, and part of the shallow sea. Glowing hot fireballs of vaporized rock and water rose far above the Earth's atmosphere and spread over the planet. As it cooled, molten drops of rock about the size of a grain of sand solidified into an immense swarm of shooting stars. The shooting stars re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and heated the upper atmosphere to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Standing at the ground, the dinosaurs saw the blue sky become a sheet of red-hot lava. The scientific artist, David Hardy, imagines the fate of the dinosaurs in this painting. They broiled to death under the glowing skies. The energy in the sky is like that in the glow bar in an electric oven. If you're dying to experience what the dinosaurs did when they died, turn your oven on broil and hop in. The glowing sky started everything on fire. Great clouds of smoke rose into the upper atmosphere and blocked the sun so that no sunlight reached the ground. It became cold and dark. Photosynthesis stopped, and plants and animals in the ocean or on the land either starved or froze to death. The dinosaurs didn't do anything wrong that caused their death. It was just fate that an asteroid hit the Earth and killed 70% of the species that we know of on the planet. Unfortunately, in our lifetimes, we may experience the same fate as the dinosaurs. But I'm not talking about another asteroid collision. I'm talking about a nuclear war. A nuclear war would have many of the same phenomena that the dinosaurs experienced. But this time, it absolutely would be our fault. Fortunately, there are things that we can do to prevent this from happening. If you live in a city that has a military base, there's a missile that's aimed at you right now. If you live in a city that has an important industry, a major university, a large airport, an oil refinery, or oil storage facilities, there is a hydrogen bomb that's aimed at you right now. We live in a perilous era. There are 15,000 nuclear weapons on the planet, and the 9 nuclear weapon states are in conflict with each other. The United States and North Korea, NATO and Russia, India and Pakistan. We're just one misunderstanding, one mistake, or one fanatic politician away from a nuclear conflict. In the Second World War, fleets of hundreds or even 1,000 airplanes were used to bomb a single city. But with the invention of the atomic bomb, only one airplane and one bomb was needed. The Enola Gay carried one atomic bomb with the power of 15,000 tons of TNT. And when it dropped that bomb on Hiroshima, Japan, 100,000 people died. Over time, even more powerful bombs were built, hydrogen bombs. This 1960s airplane carried 5 hydrogen bombs, the red and white things there, and had the power of 500 Hiroshima bombs.
Well, I think we're going to. That's what's happened. We're not on the video we were on before. That's what happened. Sorry.
I mean, when we talk about.
Sorry, I don't know how it moved on to the next one there, but we'll just continue from here. All right, well, that was interesting. TED Talk on nuclear war, but we'll continue from right here, but or the next. Oh, I see what happened. I clicked on this, and all right. Well, this is more of this. Now, I haven't watched this, and rather than I thought there was more coming up that was more about what we were hearing from our friend Ward Wilson. But let's we won't continue with this. We'll just go back because I don't know what's going forward. But I did watch a lot of things that are related to this nuclear scam, and I think that's so I wanted to bring this up because of what our topic has been, right? And it's how we're controlled through fear. And being controlled by fear allows us to keep using our energies and giving it over to them. And that's the thing we have to stop. We have to stop being in fear and acting out of fear. What we have to do is realize what we want, right? We have to choose what we want. And when the fear comes up, deal with it briefly, right? And then put it aside and move on with what our agenda is. Fear is natural, but it's not supposed to be eternal. It's supposed to give us a moment to pause and reflect and think what we need to do next through critical thinking. Not emotional thinking, not just listen to your gut and go with it, right? Think about all the issues at hand and then make a rational choice and hopefully develop wisdom through our experience. That's what we really need to focus on. Because we're now embarking in a place that we haven't been before. We haven't been in the position to want to take action and build a world that's based around abundance. We haven't had all the asset behind us to go and do that. We haven't had before the technology to do things quite differently. You know, I've been working on kind of a banking model. I have a banking partners, and we're brainstorming and coming up with ideas on how we could do this, and how existing banking, right? Because we can't just throw out the whole world overnight. We have to take what's there and then work with it. That's what Kim's doing, right? She's working with the existing system and the rules that are in place and adapting and making sure that things can work legitimately. Takes time. But you know, when we're looking at how do we do something to provide funding, we have to realize what the truth of things are. For example, we have value, right? And that's infinite. And whatever we put our actions and actions towards, we should have benefit from it. Not be limited by the system, right? Realize that the system should be working for us, not for that small amount. So that small group, that elite group. So that's the centralized nature. So I think we need to build a decentralized model. So what's more decentralized than the people? Every individual. So how do you work with a banking system that'll allow for us to act decentralized when those banks are acting from a centralized system? Well, one, first decentralize the banks from the central banking system. So have all of the countries be decentralized, meaning that they're not reliant upon one bank. Why is it Fiji has a problem? Why are they waiting for money from outside of Fiji? Why? Why is their central bank not issuing money? Why is their economy grinding to a halt? Why can't they pay their employees? Why isn't the government printing its own money? Because it's centralized. So we have to decentralize the banking around the world as a start. And then when the people are interfacing with the banks, that they're treated basically because they are of infinite value. Just think about like VIP, right? Very important person. Well, everyone should be very important, right? Everybody. So how do you create a system like that? So we've been talking about some models. So let's look at, say, a co-op bank. Now, I'm just use the word co-op bank just to kind of set kind of a mental picture, right? It's about the people, right? What happens in a co-op? It's not going to be a co-op bank, but this is at least a way to set the framework to think that when you have a co-op, you have all the people that say join as a member, right? And they have maybe they have a membership fee or whatever, and then they've pulled their money together and they get their whatever that co-op is. So maybe it's a co-op of farmers that grow apples, right? And then as the group, they basically pull all their apples together and they sell them together so that they can get the best price, right? And then they split the money up based upon the amount of apples that came in and so on. So the profits are shared amongst the people in the co-op. So if you did that as a co-op bank and you were able to share the profits of a bank. So in Fiji, there are some good banks, and we've been looking into those. So maybe it's a good one to purchase there. I'm not going to give names, but looking into some things. So if a bank was able to now distribute the money to the people that it made off of making loans to the people, that's an abundance model. That's recognizing the people that are the members that have joined, right? Should have the ability to benefit from their participation in the bank. Not the interest payments, per se from this deposit of funds, right? Interest, not payments, but interest earned on money kept there, which is that current system, the interest-based money. So creating a system in which the money that's made is then distributed back to the people is just one model. So how do we create more of a world that has these abundance-based models? How do we go about doing that? Is we have to do some experimenting. We have to basically try different things. So we have the decentralizing of banks around the world, which is happening. It's not going to happen overnight. When it's all done, it'll seem like it was overnight. Everything will collapse. But the central banking system itself is inefficient for distributing around the world funds to make things equal, right? The system was meant to bring abundance to the world. We kind of covered that, let's say the trading platforms that we've discussed, the Hammer trading program as opposed to the Hammer spying system. So these funds for the countries to basically make money off of projects that they put forth. It's a great idea. Why didn't it work? Because of the centralized nature. They favored certain people that were in their club at the expense of others. That means instead of distributing, equally to everybody, they got distributed. Well, I'm having a deja vu. It's a deja vu all over again and all over again. It's an echo of a deja vu. Wow. You ever have deja vus? Little side note, since I had a deja vu, is I see deja vus as kind of like a weather pattern of a magnetic bubble that basically is you're passing through. And as you pass through this magnetic bubble, it's actually pushing reality back over you, and you're experiencing what is just about ready to happen to you, as opposed to the idea that this is, oh, I saw this in some dream, or it's it happened, or something had already happened. I think it's something along those lines. I may be wrong, but it's my own theory. Yeah, so. Couple of, just checking on messages. Oh, we're actually 1 hour into this already, so we're at 10. So Tank has ended his speak up with Tank for today, so he should be joining over the next hour or so, half an hour, minutes. Did I send the link to Tui? I might have missed Tui. I did post the link in where we go when we go all.love Telegram chat, so that's there. Tui. Here we go. All right, Tui, I sent you the link. You're welcome to jump on. So we're just, we're talking about some different things here. I guess I can monologue pretty well about these particular topics. But so let's see. We're talking about abundance-based models, and so we've been working on how do we build a banking system, right, that will actually create more wealth for everybody. And so as opposed to the banks being monolithic, and that we actually bring them down to earth and have them act more as a partner in business, right? Don't you think that would be much better? I mean, the concept of banks as a young entrepreneur, when I had a project that I could, prove up, and I could say this is going to earn money, right? And I put together a plan, and I have things that they should be able to lend the money, right, to do things, right? And my first experience with that, I actually had an exclusive on distribution of a video card. It was a non-linear editing card. And so I had exclusive rights to the distribution of this card. And I had orders for the card. But I had to basically put up the money for the production of the cards. But the orders were big. So we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 cards. And the card was something that all it had to do was be produced, right? And I was already working with one of the major banks, and I had actually a very good reputation with the bank, and they saw all of the orders and money that was being generated by the company. It was a very good ramp up. It was continuing to get more profitable and more profit every month that went by. 2 years of records with that. Here is, so I wanted to do was what they call, I basically had to get the payments. So I had the secured orders from big contractors, right, that they definitely would pay, right, for these, but the bank wouldn't lend the money to go ahead and do it. So it ended up, losing the bigger contracts, right? And they actually bought competing cards, right, for doing this work. But the smaller amounts were made, right, and the cards sold, but but the opportunity was lost. For as the way I see it, no good reason other than the bank wouldn't lend the money. So but was that a good partner? Was that bank a good partner? No. And my bankers were, always so friendly about, money is flowing into their bank, right? Does that give them more money to lend out? They can make money. But why wouldn't they lend the money for this purpose? Very strange. So, banks are supposed to also risk money. Let's say that was all about risk. Banks are supposed to risk money. Where does the money come from? Where does the money come from for them to lend out? Signing the loan agreement based upon me, right? My birth certificate. So the creation of the money is actually me. Why wouldn't the bank do it? This happens across the board. I would have made a lot of money with this exclusive. A lot of money. Millions upon millions initially, and where that would go from there. But if the money is created by me signing the loan document, the money's created. It didn't exist before. It's not in the vaults in the bank. But literally, me signing the document creates the money for them to lend it to me, and me pay interest on it. That's the craziness of this system. Why would they not just lend? What if it gets all lost? What if it's lost? Okay, there's a bad debt on the books. So, do they? Could I sign another document and pay that off? Sure, another debt, right? We're all works off of debt. So, but it's hindering. The system is set up to hinder business from developing, unless you're on the in crowd. Maybe I wasn't on the in list, right? So what is it, in this system, that really wants people to fail? Why? The simplest of businesses could go much further if there was capital available to them. They could build up. They could build a better economy. So I came up with a fantastic idea when we were talking about brainstorming, right? And one banking partner I was brainstorming with, and he said, "That's a fantastic idea." I think it's the first time I ever heard him say that. I'm not going to discuss it right now, but with these type of changing systems, right, to create abundance, could really spread wealth to so many people. And as Tank has been describing, put a project in the pipeline, right? Because the project is creating asset, right? It's creating, whether it's a physical item that's being built or whether it's a system in place, it's an asset. It's just helping people. You're creating a place to live or housing, or these are assets that are being created. So it supports the cash being put, as opposed to dumping cash on the existing system. Once the project is made, it's in the pipeline. The pipeline starts spitting out projects, and they're completing. The cash that's moved out into the system starts circulating. Is supportive. That's wealth being generated. So we can actually create a system that is going to be supportive, because we've got some technology at hand. We've got just cell phones, right? Computing systems that if we use them as payment systems and move money around with them. Again, I'm not against cash, but we're talking about being able to move transfer things into accounting that is not necessarily for taxation purposes, but for the purpose of generating wealth. You need to be able to count things. That's fine. We count things, but it's all, we don't need to have an accountant's, what is it, what do they call that? Those green visors that all the accountants used to wear. You don't have to go around with a green visor to be in business. We need to do our business and not get bogged down into the accounting. It should be automated in a way that is just runs, and that it heads that way for a lot of things. Anyway, so let's turn this around and let's go and visit our friends in the chat room. Let's go there. I'm gonna scroll to the top here. Okay, now I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see where people want to go. Again, if you're in the chat room and you want to ask a question, please just go ahead and put a Q in the front and then ask your question. We're starting here at the top. The first one into the room is Joseph Lambert. Hello, Joseph. So he came in 1 minute before the start. We got a bunch of people in here. Actually, I don't know how many is actually we have online right now. Let's take a look. I'll zoom out so I can see. Okay, we got 128 people watching right now. Hello, everybody. This is the 85th show in a row. Remember, we started this with just doing 2 weeks. GCR, the big lie. Go back and look at those first 2 weeks. Pretty exciting. Anyway, I'm gonna zoom back in so we can look at the chats. Okay, so we're missing some of the top there, but I hope I can get most of it. All right. I'm still not on the Creators Network. I keep talking about that with Tank, and I'm not on there right now. Okay. I feel less fear under our president. That is for sure. It's actually a great deal of hope has come from Trump. I can tell you that. Not visible arrests, but there have been arrests made already. Cloning is used to distract. Well, that'd be interesting. I don't know how many arrests have happened. I think the way that we're going to see them when they look like in the on the news media, on the talking heads, on all those channels, looks like they're ready to be arrested, like Brennan and Comey and Clapper. When those are ready to be arrested, the rest of the arrests will follow. It'll be like the first domino, and then it'll be like a couple of weeks it'll go by, and then we'll see a couple more, maybe some more lower levels, and then maybe Loretta Lynch is thrown in there, maybe a Lisa Page, maybe Steele gets picked up. Who knows? But then it's going to get to Hillary and Obama and Bush. And we'll throw the vice presidents in there, at the same time. It's going to get there, but that might take months, right? I don't think it's going to be days. I think it's going to take some time for people to digest what has happened and wake up. It's all about waking up the people. That's what we need. So, all right, let's keep going. I feel no fear under our president. Yeah, another one. Yeah, I heard that. Okay. Yeah, you have to remember 80% will be private and only 20% will be public. What does that mean? You mean their arrests will be private? I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, of course, people that are not in public view, are not going to end up being, paraded in front of the public. There's 100,000 sealed indictments. Each sealed indictment can have from 1 to 99 people in it. Right? So we just said 100 times 100,000 or 10 million people possibility, upper end of that. Actually, this is a quick look. QMap.pub. I'll just take a quick look in at QAnon and see what's going there. See if there's some things here. But I wanted to really go down and look at the sealed cases. Where are we at? 96,000 still. So they haven't. There's no update on that as of yet. I like looking at the sealed indictments chart. It really tells you what's been going on. When this green line, these unsealed cases, when this starts looking like the blue line, that's what we're going to be seeing. We're going to be seeing 5,000 cases a month. Because if these people are basically lining up 5,000 people or 5,000 sealed indictments every month going up, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. Well, it varies, right? So this is 46 to 52. So that's 6,000, right? Up to, and this, of course, the next month is back down to 4,000, right? Yeah, that's another 6,000. So again, 5,000. So again, it's about 5,000 every month that is been going on. So this is for April. So May hasn't happened yet. So we shall see. Resignation. We'll just take a quick look in resignations. So resignations are for the month of May are up at 359, 300 for that month. So resignations, we had a peak back here last July, right? But we are still having a lot of resignations. These are top people around the world resigning. So what else to look at? Also, it's good. I like to look and see how many are rescued. So the amount of rescued is actually dropped. But this is just, let's see, we're starting, this is April. December 2019. These dates are not making any sense. April makes sense, but December? Oh, this is maybe he said he's going to resign in the future. No, what this is, maybe, I think the date is wrong here. It must be 2018. Just thrown in wrong there. So anyway, back to Q. Let's see what's been going on. So we're not getting many coming out, so it's all right. So we're right in the from yesterday, so nothing new. Yeah, Cass's conspiracy and a LARP. They're discrediting this news. Who are those that attack? Who threaten the most? So the ones who are basically attacking and talking out, like Brennan. Comey's not saying anything, right? Comey's very quiet right now. That's okay. Let me go back here for a minute. I hit the wrong button. We'll switch and go over to here. There's the one. All right. Back to the. So hopefully Tank will be joining us. We'll see if we got any update. Okay. Okay. Dan, please tell Tank that the program this afternoon was terrific. We need more like that. I guess it just must have finished. So well, hopefully he'll be coming on, and we'll say it was terrific. Maybe let me check the messages. Sometimes he's trying to get on, but he's not able to. It's not seen the message yet. So I would say not maybe he's having a break. So it takes a lot to do 2-hour broadcasts and then go on and do another one for another couple hours. Banks should serve people, not banks slaving people. Yeah, that's there's banks out there that are operating in one way. We just have to build banks that are operating a different way, right? And if people are making money with participating with the bank, well, I think more people are going to want to join that bank, right? We just have to do it differently. But if the central banking system is stopping it from happening, which is what's happening, why no money flows to Fiji or other countries? Because the central banks are controlling it. Okay. Hey, Dan. Hello, everyone. Good job. Thank you. That's Serge. All right.
Yeah, what's going on?
Oh, hey, I'm just looking through the chats right now, seeing if there's any questions. So how's it going with you?
Man, everything's coming up roses. Everything's looking good.
Okay, awesome.
Just watching all the pieces here. Just had a nice conversation with Mardi Gras for Musical Alchemy. She was talking about the ways that the ways that we can heal ourselves with music and broadcasting in a 432 frequency. So that's pretty cool. And just kind of reviewing some of the stuff that's breaking all out there, man. It's pretty exciting stuff, Yeah. You got all types of all types of crazy stuff they're really revealing on a pretty incredible level. There's all types of people that are really guilty of treason.
Oh yeah, it is amusing. I didn't want to get too much into it today. I focused on the nuclear scam, the fear that's created around nuclear energy,
okay.
and that it's the people that used to deal with it in the very beginning, right in the 1950s for like 15 years, used to processing with their hands, right, uranium and extracting plutonium. Right, and doing this and made enough for 10,000 times the amount of nuclear weapons that were needed for the world they were producing, right? And it was the regulators that came in after 15 years. Again, none of these people died from cancer or anything else. Started coming up with well, you have to wear these badges, right? And you can only receive this much dosage, right, in your lifetime, and so on. All these kinds, and they knew it was baloney. Right? They knew it at the time, and I said, this doesn't make any sense. And the point that I was making is that they created the fear around it so that they could actually control it, and make sure that everyone was down the wrong path, bad information about it. Right? The guy said, when we had a nuclear problem with one of the rods, that they just put, they just have to kick it. They didn't know if it was too hot to touch with their hands, so they kick it with their foot and kick it and roll it into the pool, cool it down. Right?
Yeah,
You see
it's
on
amazing.
you see on the sci-fi, right? See all these programs, and they have all the nuclear rods, and they have to keep them submerged in the water, and all these horrible things. And they did have meltdowns, right? And they described them. They said high pressure, and when that stuff would by accident fall on the ground, it would melt because it's so high temperature. It melt into the ground, but it would actually seal itself off and make its own glass cocoon.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how naturally things just take care of themselves.
So everything we also did a little bit of a branch off into Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because I pointed out that those are thriving cities now, regardless of the half-life of 150,000 years, right?
Well, I mean, Chernobyl, right? I mean, Chernobyl was like the biggest nuclear disaster of all time, right? And Chernobyl is like, it has a thriving community of animals there now, and the plants are all grown back, and all these different things, right? And Chernobyl was actually, because Chernobyl's at a point close to the I don't know, to the poles that is super high frequency, right? So that's why it was melted down, because it was too powerful. So they took it out. It was the idea, right? But now it's just recovering all by itself, right? No special special actions. They just terrified people not to go there. But it's obviously, if the animals come back, it's real. It's okay.
Well, they also he also brought up on this video that the waste, right, quote unquote waste, what they used to do it is that they would process it into I think he called it boridium. I missed might not the right word, but a pellet, right, a small pellet, and this pellet was so hot. It gave it off heat, an infrared heat, that it actually glowed in the dark and generated heat. And they would use those for powering systems, with no moving parts, power systems. And they use these to power their undersea sonar systems that they would put throughout the oceans, right?
Wow. Yep.
So, and again, it's not about the radiation or anything like that, but they use them as power systems. So what they started calling waste, they would then charge the companies a lot of money to take away the waste and bury it in very, very deep underground facilities for 150,000 years, right? They had to secure this stuff. And I was just making the point. It's like what used to be called, they'd make energy systems out of with no moving parts, and those are still in operation today, right? That those systems, that waste is now being moved underground, and they're charging the nuclear companies a lot of money to take that waste away, and they bury it. And I'm sure at the other end of the vault underground, they open the door and then they use it to power the underground cities.
Yeah, without question.
It's all a fiction to create this idea of fear, so they can again use us to do all this processing of the uranium, making all the power plants, take our energy, charge us and charge us and charge us, so that we have no spendable income, no money, no excess money, right, to rise up and against their power structure, right?
Yes.
They don't want to share, right? They don't want to have a million billionaires, right, to deal with.
Right, and then the whole system, whether anybody likes it or not, was designed to cannibalize itself. Because they took the assets, and that was how you created currency. And once they took all the assets, there's no more money to make, because the assets have been allocated for. So the only option is for the assets to be returned to the people. returned, where they belong, and that's where we're at. It's really amazing. There's so much potential here. It doesn't take much, right? It just takes, a few people rowing in the right direction. And everything changes. Everything can change. I can't. I just can't even. I got some information that somebody was telling me that somebody was talking about how humanity is not ready. Let me tell you something. You know what's not going to help humanity get ready? More poverty. The last thing humanity needs is more poverty to get ready. They just don't. That's just not what's going to help. What's going to help is results, right? If you look at, I take the Messiah as an example, right? Or the, however that's portrayed to people, but most people are familiar with that character. Now, the Messiah, when he went into a town, he had a message, right? That was the point why he was there to share. But the first thing he would do is feed the people. Then he would heal the people. Then he would preach. That was his MO, right? So any concept that perpetuates that we need to remain poor longer because our frequency isn't high enough, or we're not ready in any way, I just don't agree with. You cannot. It is unfair to brainwash people, starve them, abuse them, raise them with absolute mind control in a war-torn society, in a war-torn system, and then say, and now you have to wait because we told you the truth that all this happened to you, and now it's your responsibility to somehow transcend that, right? And how do you? Because the first 18 years of your life are complete brainwashing. Then like absolute structured brainwashing, right? So you're programmed to believe this is real, and because all these things are real, and that's what you're programmed to do, that's all you know to be true, and you can't even. I think about things.
You have to see through all of that, right? And really find the truth out there. And for those few that actually kind of glimpse it, right? And they make it through the door, they'll close the door behind that one person. Right? And then they'll say, okay, you've made it through, but don't tell anyone else.
Right. So by keeping that's why the public message is so important, right? And by the way, that's why our words and the way we use them is so important. Anytime people just throw words out and just think that they assume that everybody knows what those words mean. But if you listen, I'm always very careful to really try to define what I'm saying, because we throw words out and we think everybody gets what I'm saying, right? We just assume that they know. But that's the problem. That's the disconnect. That's why it's so important to take things and take a little more time to make sure what we're saying is being understood. And one of the best ways to do that, in my opinion, is to have people teach it back to you. You'd be amazed.
Yeah.
You remember 100% of what you can teach, right? It's like visually, like you remember like 70%, like audibly, you remember like 40%, but when you can actually teach something back to someone, then you actually understand it, right? You actually understand it. That's why Dan is so prolific in the message he puts out, because from almost day one, he was already setting up other calls and talking about it and teaching it all the time. And the more you repeat it, the more it becomes part of what you understand to be true, and it's real. It's a great way to learn in general.
And that's why we want others to grab the same type of message and repeat it in your own words and do your own broadcasts.
Yeah. So so across the board, I'm just looking at the way these things are hitting, and I'm looking at this, the group in there in Dinarland, right, who's kind of consumed with the currency revaluing, which is never going to happen, right? So it's never going to happen, and it's not to pick on those people, right? The goal is that every one of those people is an energetic conduit that already understands the world is not what is being portrayed in the mainstream. So they are excellent candidates to see the truth because they already know a whole bunch of stuff, right? Now, any logical application of supply and demand would tell you that there's no way ever that you could do a currency valuation the way it's described in dinar land. So now what they're doing is they're coming out with different characters and they're saying they're trying to shame people again, right? So whenever you see someone trying to shame you, believe me when I say this, it's garbage. Whenever they try to say, well, your frequency isn't high enough, or, the people are too about the money. Listen, I'm not about the money. You're wrong. I'm about the change. Now, the money just happens to be the tool that we're using. But money is just energy. That's all it is. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could talk about, eggs. If we were paying for things in eggs, that would be what we'd be talking about. Then it doesn't really matter. What really matters is what you can do with it and what we've all agreed as a collective the money symbolizes right now. So right now, the money is important, right? Because when you start talking about like starving kids, well, if you're talking about starving kids, how do you change that? You change it right now in this current society by using money, right? By making sound decisions about things that are obvious, right? Like, let's stop poisoning the water. Let's stop using GMOs when we have obvious technology that would be less expensive to bring out, develop, produce, put all over the world, and we could have a thriving agricultural society every place on the planet, and it would have a permanent growing season that would last all year round, regardless of the weather. We could have that right now. How ridiculous is it to make a claim that we're ruining the environment while continue to support, various forms of food production, which they are more tragic to the environment, right? There's a million different ways we could change the world. None of them have to revolve around genocide, and I know nobody wants to, so many people don't want to believe that that's true, but that is obviously what they're doing. Think about it. If somebody was at your personal home, right? They're at your house, right? And you hire them, and their job is to keep the house. This is their job. And they go out to your fresh water supply and they put poison in it. The first thing. Now, first thing is you're poisoning my water. You clearly aren't for me or my family. Then they take, your fresh garden and they manipulate it to look really big, but it's less healthy. And they put things in it that are actually causing impotence and infertility and chemical castration and all these different things. They put that in your food. You are definitely not for me. You're not for my family. Then inside the house, you go and put something in the air conditioning unit. So as the air goes in, it's filtered through an arrangement of chemicals that will make you sick. You're not for my family. You're not for me. If you just did those things, and you found out that person was at your house who you're paying now, you're paying that person to take care of your home and your family, and that's what they're doing. Get that joker out of your house, right? First thing you do, and you don't even know what you do. You might kill that person, right? Because they're trying to kill your family. You're defending yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So now think about it. That's happening in your house, which is Earth. They're doing it everywhere, and we all accept it like it's normal. Now that's the reality, And if we could just personalize these things, I always tell people that all of my business is personal. I never like that statement, like, it's business, not personal. All my business is personal. Everything I do, I take a personal interest in. It's because I love it. It's because I believe in it. If I don't want to do it. Why would I want to be in something like I don't really care about
it's
this?
actually a very lame excuse. It's just business, right? If you wouldn't want that being done to you, you shouldn't be doing it to anyone else. That you would just want to use that excuse. It's just business. That means that you wouldn't want that happening to you. So you're just saying, well, I can do it to you because it's just business. No, that's not valid.
No, because our business is people, and at the end of the day, all people are our business. Like I see this all the time. Whenever kids come to my house, I treat them like they're my kids, right? So like if I tell my kids to clean the table and like they got their friends over, I'm like, clean the table. You know, because that's when you treat people like family. You know, like that's what you treat them like their family because you care about them, right? And there's nothing wrong with helping out. You should know to do that as a child, right? My kids know they go to somebody's house. You know, first thing they do is check with the lady of the house and see what she needs. It's just proper, right? And there's just something about this, like in general, we've become so comfortable distancing ourselves from any responsibility for anything that we
Dividing
didn't directly
ourselves.
do.
Dividing
What?
ourselves.
Yes, dividing ourselves. So, you know, I see your kid and they're doing heroin or something, right? And like they're about to experiment with heroin, and I just turn a blind eye because it's none of my business. That's not true, right? That's my friend's child. That is my business. That's my business. You know, and that is the lame. You're right. It's a lame excuse that we think we're just going to turn a blind eye, and what it does is it breeds indifference, right? Because we're so consumed with worrying about ourselves, and you know, even now, like you know, pushing on people that you know, I've never liked it when like people say, "Oh, we're too materialistic." Yes, there's an aspect of society that is materialistic. At least that's what's portrayed, right?
Right.
And yes, that does affect people because they want brand names and they don't even
Well,
realize the brands they're wearing.
they want to
Was
create this idea of self-loathing.
right, exactly.
Divide you against yourself.
Yep. So,
Right?
you know, now you're too materialistic. So now you got to be so humble, right? So now you got, you know, people that are really, really pious, right? And really into the religion. They'll be like, well, I don't need much. Like, first of all, you will never hear me start a sentence with, I don't need much. Because I don't know what I need. You know,
So,
whatever somebody's got, I'm like, give it to me. I'll put it to use. I'll put it to use. I'll find a way. I know somebody who needs it, right?
did you ever do any hobbies like or collecting of say baseball cards or anything? You know,
Sure.
is that materialistic if you get into the hobby of collecting something? You derive enjoyment out of collecting something. So if you end up collecting cars, right, or even exotic cars or classic cars, is that materialistic? Where do you want to draw that line as you're now being materialistic? I always resisted, the when they were saying that Christmas was all being commercialized, it's over commercialized and all that. And so I didn't mind that people wanted to make money on Christmas, right, from selling things that people wanted to do for giving gifts. And why is that a problem? Why do you want to create the situation of calling it I mean, I find it a little ridiculous when they start, Christmas decorations and everything in October, but
Yeah.
you have it's a little bit too much. I said, well, wait a minute, don't pass up Halloween,
Well, it always fascinates me. Like, who's the one who says this, right? Who's the one who started the rumor that Christmas was too materialistic, right? Well, the mainstream media, right? Well, how did they start that rumor? Well, they started showing people standing outside of doors, creating a stampede and fighting over dolls, right? At, like Thanksgiving on Black Friday.
Right.
And they create this whole, oh my gosh, people have lost their mind. Well, in reality, that happened like one out of probably 100,000 different stores that opened that day.
Right.
You had one place where it went crazy, but for the most part, is it really that big a deal? Why is it materialistic? Because you created the anxiety around it that people have to have certain things. They've created a materialistic society. So now I'm like, you know what? I do need the energy that is utilized and traded here now, that is agreed upon in this collective consciousness, so that we can change it, right? We do need that because we need to take over the media, right? The mainstream media. And to do that, we're going to have to, buy networks from people who might not want to sell because, maybe they're doing
I
great.
hear
But
CNN is up for sale.
what is?
I said I hear CNN is up for sale.
Oh, man, I'd take CNN all day. That'd be great.
Yeah. The conservative news network would be great, rebranding.
Conservative News Network. Oh, no, I don't think so. We'll go. But that would be great branding, though.
Well,
But
yeah, I think Clinton News Network or CIA News Network is really, it needs to be completely overhauled. So
yeah,
let's go the other, swing the pendulum.
I think we could call it the Conscious News Network.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I can go along with that. That works. But I just saw that they have the pink slips are going out, and they're downsizing to 300 people. They lost so much of their audience share. Like they're they're almost gone, right? So
Yeah,
why do they even get a press pass at this point, right? They can't even be considered major. A lot of alternative media is bigger. Their audience is much bigger than CNN's.
yeah. I mean, they have all the pieces, I guess.
Yeah, and
In a fancy building.
we see also like I was watching something from SGT report, which is a great channel, and I listen to everything that he puts out. And he's showing his numbers, right? And some others, he's comparing his numbers to others and how much he was gaining in subscribers every month, and now he's losing daily subscribers, right? Which in a whole previous year, it actually, never had, except for one day when he was actually banned. Did he have a day that he lost members, right? But now every day he loses subscribers, right? And it's a trickle out, right? And now his viewers are now half of what it was a year ago. But he's even more on target and more better programming than he was a year ago. So that's
Amazing, yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. So it's now the amount of views that we're looking at. I have no idea how many viewers we're actually getting to, and how much their suppression is actually taking effect. Right? Because people do get unsubscribed, to the channel. So it'd be really great if we can move past this and actually just have truth, right, without being restrained. And turn over the censorship to the people. If I don't want a certain type of video, fine. You want your AI out there, scanning for words and things, and I don't want anything with a particular word, right? I should be able to filter that out. Okay, great. Right? But
Right.
why is it for you to decide that I don't get to see this, or my subscribers that decided that they wanted to subscribe, not to show it to them? Who are you? Oh, you're the cabal. you're you're the one that's out there that's trying to control everything. But so anyway, we can look at that. Oh, one of the other things I was talking about before you came on is coming up with a new banking system, right? That is more based around the people. We've been analyzing banks. We have a list of 54 banks to purchase, and to create a system that actually would I call it a co-op bank, but it wouldn't actually be a co-op. But to set the idea is to call it it's like a co-op where the revenue that's generated by the bank could be shared among its members, right? Just for being part of it, you can end up sharing it. So that's your bank. You end up participating with that bank. You end up then earning from the money made at the bank. That would be like one concept, to help bring wealth to the people. So just these systems that we have to rethink. We have to do things that are not out of the fear-based systems that are coming in place. So what would be fearful about having the people share in the profits from a bank, right? If you're a member participating, I'm not saying that the bank doesn't make money, but maybe you could take 50% of the money made by the bank and give it to the members, or then half goes to the investors, you could say. You do something like that. Wouldn't that want to promote more? Wouldn't a lot of people want to participate in that bank?
Sure, of course.
I would think so, right? So wouldn't that be better for the bank? But why don't banks do that now? Right? Because that would put money in the hands of the people.
Because they don't want to do that.
Yeah,
because they don't want people to have money, because then people will be able to make decisions. And if people can make decisions, they'll realize they don't have to be slaves. That's the reality.
That's
It's just a tragedy right now. We're at a pivotal moment in all this. It's CNN's diminished. There's no, like, we don't want to give money back to the bad guys, right? But I'll tell you what, buying CNN when they're completely annihilated, perfect timing. Because you might be giving them back some kind of money, but you're giving them back a pittance of what it really is, right?
Yeah.
It is time to strike. It's time to move right now. And I'll tell you, Dan, I thought this was really creative. What this woman's had to say just now to me about she was using it in a different context, but I thought she said there's a tuning fork that tunes to 432, right?
Yes.
And I thought, now how great would that be, right? We'll cut some deal with the company, right? And we'll have as many people as we can around the whole world order tuning forks at a 432 frequency, right? And at 4:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll have everybody chime their 432 tuning forks, right? And then eventually we'll take those people, and as things start to heal and change from that one frequency once a day, right? And just let people go out into the streets and start doing marches and just by tuning that tuning fork and change the entire frequency of the planet.
Yeah.
Let's make that happen.
I actually used to know someone that had a 432 tuning fork, and they would tap it, and then they would basically put the end of the tuning fork on a glass of water on the edge, right? So it would transfer that vibration into the glass of water, and then they drink the water.
Oh my gosh, that's genius! Yeah. Now you're tuning water, you're tuning people. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, think of the difference. Just a tuning fork. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's contact the company.
And we do that 432. It kind of puts a spin on the 420 time frame, but after 420 happens, then you do 432.
Yep, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a great point. It's like we can capitalize on it. 432. It's beautiful. So I'm a believer. I'm a fan. Look, we have to change this. And if tuning forks is the answer, I mean, who could possibly be mad about people walking around with tuning forks?
It's a weapon of mass destruction.
Well, yeah, I mean, of mass construction. It's a weapon of mass construction, right? You're constructing a new world. It's the opposite.
Yeah. I don't know if they let you fly on a plane with it, though. You get it through TSA. It would be funny. You had a tuning fork in your pocket, and you go in one of those scanners, right? And the scanner actually breaks because it reacted against the tuning fork.
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw this report from the United Nations employs 3,300 people that are, I guess we're not allowed to say this, PEDO.
Oh,
files,
my goodness.
Right? Responsible for 60,000 rapes in the last 10 years. How about that for some stats?
Was that on the application? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. Like,
that's what are they looking for? I mean, what is the role of these people that they would look for this as a purpose?
Well, I suppose if you were in California, right, that would be like, well, they can't help it, right? That's what they would say in California, right? So if they hired 3,300 people from California, that would kind of make sense because they're teaching there that it's just a perfectly normal practice. They're teaching little kids that, right? Little kids. I can't stop thinking about this, right? Just with my daughter, my 6-year-old is she's magic. She's just amazing. I love the way she considers things and looks at things, and everything in her life is just, you know, rainbows and butterflies and unicorns, and you know what? And every one of those things is just as real as anything that I think's real. I mean, it's just amazing to hear her talk, right? And she's constantly having these amazing little dialogues all by herself with, invisible friends of hers, which could very well be just, galactics or angels or something that I just can't see. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, I can't imagine someone telling my daughter that this type of horrible thing that I would never even let her hear about is okay, it's normal. Then something happens to her and I don't know about it. And she doesn't tell me because she's ashamed. And at the same time, she thinks it's normal. Imagine that's a tragedy. And that's the environment they've now created in California. Good job, California. You knocked it out of the park, scumbags. You're better off with Arnold as your governor.
The funny thing is about when Arnold ran, right? It was so much run as like a movie. It was like a movie campaign. It looked like the offices that he'd set up and everything. And then, the idea was he was going to get in there and be the Terminator, right? And terminate all the bad stuff going on. But it never, of course, that never happened. Actually, I ran into Arnold a few times. Right, he's very short. It's a very funny thing to think. On the screen he's so big, right?
Oh, but sure.
He's actually short.
Really?
He drives around in a Hummer, right? I was actually buying a Toyota at a Toyota dealership when he actually came in to buy a car at the same time. Interesting. But anyway, a lot of that is it's so much part of this fiction is that everybody's an actor. They hiring people to fill the role. So they like AOC. That they did a screen call on Craigslist to find her. And now that's the one that is so important in putting out these ideas and things. So, and as ridiculous as the ideas are, they're going to continue to try and move those forward through the system. That's why there has to be a complete house cleaning. That's why we have to lead our way up to the arrests and things. And we can see it's just about to happen. We're just waiting for this IG report. And it's over the next month. It's going to happen. We're going to see more and more of it coming out. Into the press, and it's just going to be a constant drumbeat until that happens, and then it'll go from Brennan, Comey, and Clapper, and it'll move to Loretta Lynch, and it'll move to the Clintons, Obamas, and Bushes.
You know what, man? Put up or shut up, because all this talk about what's going to happen. I'm glad it's working, but I still don't see. I don't see anybody moving. You've got treasonous people that have been sitting in those offices for years. They have committed treason on levels we're not even talking about, that everybody knows about, but they've sat on files that clearly reveal they're treasonous. That somebody knew what they said. Somebody in the government knew that these files showed these people committed treason, and nobody spoke up. I mean, come on. Like we've been playing a game, like we're waiting to declass, and I get it. Trump was getting investigated, all stuff, but there's no Democrat that had any kind of character or integrity to be like, yo, this is messed. Like nowhere. That's the part that just, it's like who, and on top of that, who's going to arrest them? They're not going to arrest them. They're going to get community service or some dumb thing like that, right? Like, what?
They're going down, man. They're going down. Just give it a couple.
I hope so, dude. I hope so, man. Listen, you know what? I'll believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. But I'm hoping. I'm in on it, man. It looks like they're doing some good stuff.
Well, we see that the cabal's pushing back, right? So it's a battle, right? It's every which way that the cabal.
But it's a battle. I mean, think about it, right? If it's like you and I having a fight about something, right? And like we were told, okay, we're going to debate, right? And I don't agree with what I'm saying. You don't agree with what I'm saying. But because I'm in a debate, I have to argue this side of it, right? So I keep making the argument, but even as I'm making it, I'm like, man, this argument sucks. I don't have anything to stand on. It's not even a battle. What they're saying, they don't even have a leg to stand on. They keep coming out with more and more. They're like, no, no, no. I believe he committed collusion. So what? Even if he did commit collusion, it's not a crime. Think about this. This is so ridiculous. They keep saying this word as if it's a crime, but it's not.
Well, but the thing is that the word collusion is just a precursor to the word treason. What they were trying to say is that Trump was committing treason, and that but they wouldn't say that word because they wanted to make sure that that word is not in the conversation because they are the ones that can
right, right, exactly.
But now it's out in the front. You know, the other thing that I talked about this a little bit earlier, and because we can see that Kim Jong Un, you know, they had these missile firings, right? And so now everyone's trying to say, hey, look, Trump is over there in Japan, and now we're seeing that there's missiles being fired by North Korea, and we're now heading into World War III, right? But what I see is this Kim Jong Un comes out and repeats Trump's words about Biden being a low IQ individual. I mean, this is a comedy to basically see that this is Kim Jong Un saying, "Hey, I'm on Trump's side. Listen, you know, I'm saying exactly what Trump is saying about Biden being low IQ individual, right?" And it kind of like, well, why would anyone think that this is not, you know, the deep state in North Korea trying to cause problems, right? And so Kim Jong Un just says, "I'm on Trump's side. I'm saying exactly the same thing he says about Biden being low IQ individual." You know, so it's just showing he's pairing up and whose side he's on. You know, and just, you know, relax about, you know, this stuff that they're trying to pump up as a reason to make North Korea look like it's a problem.
I think it's hilarious. Because in a million years, did you ever think it would ever be possible that, because it does appear this way, and I believe this is true, because I know that North Korea was an experiment by the Rothschild in mind control, okay? So now, I also know, I mean, just some insider information, that every time you saw the North Koreans have a big parade, and they were marching down the street with these big missiles, that every one of those missiles was not something they created. They were old post-World War II, like North Korea missiles that were sold to them by whoever, so somewhere in the U.S. corporation, right? And they'd march down there to show their military prowess and whatever. And Kim Jong-un, in my opinion, he didn't know what was going on with the world, right? Until Trump reached in and grabbed him and said, "Hey, man, let's talk about what's really happening. Like, are you tired of, you know, acquiescing to these, you know, these animals who want to, you know, take your kids and, you know, trade them, rape them, and eat them? Like, you know, let's do something about it. What do you think?" And like, I think Kim Jong Un was like, "Finally, I've been looking for logic. No, what? I'd be against the world too if I thought everyone was like the Rothschilds, right?" So. And now
people around you that are saying this is the thing, you know, they were just as much under a mind control spell, and their military still is, right? They're still of this belief, you know, because this is the world that they've created. This is the reality that they're living. Well, you know, we can look at it and say, well, why are they thinking this way? We're not like that. But
the only thing, you know, and I'm looking for this all the time. I'm like, that record has got to stop playing, right? You know, we've got, like, everything they're doing is so, at this point, you know, if this higher frequency has come in, how on earth could the same frequency that causes death, destruction, division, you know, cannibalism, pedophilia, you know, rape, you know, war, how could that same track still be playing? I mean, it doesn't even seem serious. Like, Kim Jong, like a little missile got fired off. I think it was just a deep state there. They fired off a missile, right? And they tried to make it seem like it was Kim Jong Un. And Trump, instead of freaking out, just called up, Kim Jong Un was like, "Hey, man, you set off a missile?" He's like, "Man, I didn't even know what was happening," because that's what happened, right? It was like
That's
it's just
exactly
that
how it
simple.
happened, right? Kim Jong Un said, "I'm sorry, they didn't tell me until it was happening. They actually said there was an event, so I went to the event, and then the missile went off, and I said, okay, I know what there's going on here." So he gets calls Trump.
Yeah.
Said, "Hey,
Yeah. It's like the way they keep portraying Russia as our enemy. Our enemy. Russia's not our enemy. Like, we don't have a war with anybody. We
well,
don't have a war.
just
They
think,
have a
if
war.
they're our enemy. Why did Hillary give them all this uranium?"
That does seem a bit odd. I'll
Right?
tell you something, Dan. I'm not sure about this, but I feel like Hillary might not be entirely on the up and up. Just my gut. Just my gut. I don't know.
Actually, on I started off with this video, which is about the nuclear scam, right? And the guy's explaining about all the nuclear fuel that they processed and all the uranium and pulled out the plutonium, and then he said how all of his superiors, they gathered together and they sold this big chunk of it to Russia. And then because Russia didn't have the nuclear material to make the bombs. And, so it was Eisenhower that was the one that, I'm sorry, not Eisenhower, Roosevelt was the one that basically signed off on it, a Democrat, selling the nuclear fuel to make bombs to Russia back then, so that we could then have, the Cold War and the arms mad situation, right? So that we would actually, have all this create fear, all about the nuclear.
Man, did you watch the video that I just put it on? I corrected it. It was a little bit off, but I put out this video and I combined these two speeches with Eisenhower and Roger Welsh. Man, it's amazing. It was 1958, and they completely called out the cabal. I mean, they're the reason why JFK was on a mission to take them down. Like if you see what they're saying, they map out very clearly what's happening. And I love what Eisenhower ended with. He says it's every citizen has to be conscientious and make decisions, right? And he's talking about it comes down to you people, right? He's like, we have to realize they're trying to get us to sign over our life to socialism,
Regardless that, every time socialism takes hold anywhere, millions of people die every time. Oh, it's not going to happen this time. Of course it is. Just look at everything they were setting up to go along with it. The FEMA camps, the guillotines.
I know.
Or, re-education.
Sometimes I feel like I'm going insane trying to talk. I talk about things and people they can't even fathom that that's possible. It's like, what do you mean? It's happening all over the world. They're committing genocide now. It's just it's the long, slow death. And they're committing genocide against us right now. I'll bet you, I haven't heard many people talk about this, but they talk about the population is 8 billion people. No, it's not. I can almost guarantee you they have been systematically reducing the population nonstop. And when you get the numbers, when we get the real numbers, I bet you it's hundreds of millions of people. Less, 100. I don't even know if we're 7 billion people anymore. That number is so fabricated.
That China has a definite problem right now because of their selected sex children. So that they'd get pregnant, they'd see if it was a girl, and they'd abort it. So they're at 51%, male, which means the females are in higher demand, higher amount of money you have to spend to get a woman. Right? It's created, creating that situation You know, and so now they actually don't have enough people being born to keep their civilization going.
Wow.
So they're in a problem. They're in a very big. That's why they're now trying to insist that everyone have 2 kids.
Big shift. It's a big shift.
It's a big shift, right? So because they would heavily penalize you if you actually had a second child. And literally, you become poor. You know, you don't have you're outcasts. Now you know, combined with the social score, right? If you don't have now you got to have another kid. Yeah, you know, it's oh wow, you know, I'm not really getting along with my wife. Oh, I have to have a second kid. Oh, I don't want to. So you know, it's you know, government control over our lives is a problem. You know, we need to be, you know, independent of government. We can't let government control things. Every time it's a machine. It's and those systems that are put into place have no heart, right? They have no humanity. Whatever the stated intention is, it will always end up being interfacing with the machine. And then you just take that out to the extension of AI. You know, putting AI in charge of anything is a problem. Even you know, there's a lot of things out there where they're trying to say, oh well, like traffic tickets and things like that. They want to, you know, have an AI be the judge over, say, things like traffic tickets, you know, parking tickets, so that they can process it, you know, faster. Right. So you know, how do you plead to an AI, right? I didn't park. I didn't overextend my parking. Guilty.
Yeah. It's so funny. You know, it's funny. I love what this physicist Nassim, I think his name is, was talking about this, and he said there's really no such thing as artificial intelligence, right? He's like, intelligence is something that is innate, organic, you know, cosmic, and constantly growing, right? And he's talking about the, you know, the expanded reality, you know, that of consciousness, and consciousness being outside of us in every element of the air and the, you know, and the ether that is all around us. Now we're spiraling through space, you know, the sun and the earth kind of, you know, making a spiral versus being stagnant, right? And we're leaving these pieces of our memory and, you know, kind of our cosmic imprint. And I think about this with artificial intelligence because he makes a great point. He goes, just taking data, because this is what Kim says too, right? She talks about it, she calls it the quantum mapping system because it maps everything. And then based on probabilities, it makes decisions, right? But that's not intelligence, right? That's just making decisions. Yeah. Intelligence is the natural divine connection, so to speak, or energetic connection that we have with each other, with the universe, with everything around us, and everything that is, right? And what it lacks in intelligence, or these systems, right? Just having a bunch of facts and making probability decisions, it lacks the spirit of what is happening, right? It doesn't understand the spirit of something. You know, it's like we talk about the law, and there's, you know, everything has to be written to the spirit of the law. Or I mean, there's a spirit of the laws that are written, right? And if you understand the spirit, the opposing side of that is the letter of the law. So artificial intelligence, the way we know it to be, is kind of like the letter of the law. But we have to function within the spirit of the law, right? Because the spirit of the law is what we are. We are the spirit of the law. You know, every law is designed to protect the people, right? To protect our sovereignty, to, you know, allow us to have that. And so you can't have something like that, an absolute judgment on something, because it just doesn't know. It just doesn't. It can't speak to the spirit of something, you know.
Yep.
So,
well, I was kind of describing artificial intelligence as you know, it's created out of let's say this reality, right? And it can only deal with the mathematics that exists here. So even if you extend it to unlimited bandwidth and unlimited calculations per second, it still will be contained either how smart it is, right? And how, what level at which it can think, and it can be very sophisticated, but it won't be able to basically transcend, reality and consciousness, right? It's not capable of ascension beyond that upper level of say smartness, right? It can only go that far. It can't transcend and get to the higher level of being, right? So where we're able to create out of nowhere, we can have ideas that can form and create things. I don't think it has that ability. It can only take what's already been created and manipulate. That's why
Right.
I first heard about the archons, that they have no ability to create, and they rely upon us to do things for them. Right? That I was thinking that the archons are basically an AI that may have been put in place, a very long time ago, but just keeps going. So I think that's what we have.
I think humanity as a creative being is what makes us, gives us a seat at the table, because we've been given this divine spark as creators, and that is who we are. And when Tui was talking about this the other day, he talked about us remembering who we are, right? And how, the Elohim and the Seraphim, were lost in the mix, right? Just, and how the Za-Ra collective agreement is all about bringing the masculine and feminine energies back together, because in that union, you create life, right? I mean, literally, that's these two become one flesh, right? And that creates life. So that principle of that, symbiotic relationship that exists between man and woman is just as important, really, as our symbiotic relationship with the oxygen, and the carbon dioxide and humans in the foliage, right? Because life depends on these things. So there's laws that are written within us, philoprogenitiveness, the natural love for our offspring. Because if you were just looking at your own survival, there's no benefit to having a child. If all you looked at was the practical application of survival, there wouldn't be a reason to have a baby. And that's what they're trying to take from us, by the way. They're trying to take our natural creative nature to go out and make something from nothing and tap into that and remember who we are and realize that we can create, just like you said, from nothingness. Because human beings are more quantum than any quantum system. Any quantum mapping system, the human spirit, Shilea says this to me all the time, that is more quantum. That has infinite possibilities that are not limited by anything, including the science that we know to be real or we believe to be real, and not limited by, the ideas we've already had or history we've already seen. It's unlimited based on the unlimited possibilities of the human spirit and the human mind, or the heart and mind being in harmony, able to create from nothing. I love the way Tui described it. He said it's like we created a room and then we put ourselves in the room. Then we forgot we created the room. So we limited ourselves to what was in the room, not realizing at any time we can leave the room and make whatever else we want.
Okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go to this room over here.
Listen, ever since he said that, I have spent every second trying to get out of the room. Trying to fully remember. I'm asking right now to all my guides, all divine sources, all energetic sources, all galactics, help me understand how to walk out of this room and be in the room I want to be in, and let me create that room. Because
I'm sorry, Tank, you have to do it on your own.
I know, right? I know. It's your frequency. You're the problem.
Yeah, stop that. Stop asking for help from the galactics. It gets us into problems.
Well, all I'm asking for is guidance, by the way. I'm not asking for
okay,
do anything. Right. I'll do it. I just point me in the right direction, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Ask. Is there a handbook anywhere handy?
If there was a handbook, that'd be so great. The handbook to humanity, manifesting out of nothing. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It sounds like a good book.
absolutely. Absolutely it does. So
It's kind of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or the Universe. Yeah. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe or the Galaxy. I forget what it's called. Yeah. One of the two. So, well, let me ask you, Tank. Is there any update that you can speak about today?
nothing I can speak about today. Nothing I know, actually. I didn't get any new information at all today. So other than, Kim did give me a statement to share with the kind of currency holding community based on some comments they made, some
Okay. The thing
small-minded comments.
Those questions you went over yesterday, based around.
No, this is different. It's based on some of the commentary.
Okay.
One particular group or one particular response was went on a tirade about some nonsense. They're like, if Kim's real, show us a picture of her with her Bentley. Oh wait, how about her BMW? Oh wait, maybe her Buick. How about you and her getting on a city bus together? Okay, whatever. I'm like, how do any one of those idiotic things you just said make sense to you? Do you think if Kim had a BMW or any of those things, does that make her more credible, moron? So it was so stupid. I really tried to avoid mentioning it, but I went off on Gunner's show yesterday. But Kim addressed it herself, right? And she basically said, like, she's like, I had my own businesses that net me $1 million a month, which is true, right? She used to own banks, and she's like, and I had houses, and I had a Porsche, and I had a BMW. She's like, and you know what? And I don't need those things. And she goes, and to be honest, she's like, this flagrant display of, whatever isn't, that's, it just would make me a target. And she's like, it's not necessary. She goes, I hide in plain sight. And I'm like, every time they try to say something, like, I don't even know who's saying these things. It's just trolls. I mean, the quality of troll has gone down significantly, right? These guys who all they do is just, come up with dumb things to say to try to discredit. And what they do is they try to flood it with confusion. They're like, they try to say, Tank, you're an agent of disinformation trying to confuse Denarland. I am an agent of disinformation, really? I mean, really? I put out facts for everything I say. I back it up with document. Who else even does that? None of these gurus out there are doing anything like that. They go on a call, they say the same exact thing, and because you've heard it 20 times before, you think, oh yeah, you know what? That's true because I've heard it before, which is the opposite of intelligence, right? It's programming.
Right.
So
what was the thing that was she wanted that statement?
That's what she said. She responded. Just that.
Oh, that was it.
She broke. You can go on the speakproject.net. It's there. I mean, it's the last blog. It's she said her like kind of brief pieces. She had said two things. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then I just added some commentary to kind of back up what she was saying. Because somebody was asking for proof, right? And Kim, rightfully so, gets a little irritated whenever people say that, right? Because nobody even knows the name. Like, tell me one name of a Chinese elder. Like nobody knows who they are. There's the mystic Chinese elders. They don't even need names. They're so old, right? Nonsense. Grandfather. That's the name of a Chinese elder, grandfather. And I've never been comfortable calling anybody grandfather but my own grandfather. So I was like, what does that mean? And so she said that she's like, tell me who they are. And she was, and then prove to me that this alleged quantum financial system they have exists. Right. And it's like, and she goes, once they give that proof, I'll give you whatever you want. Because there's no proof of that. But everybody out there believes it because they've heard it. So, so Dan says it on his show and I say it on my show, then I reference Dan and Dan references me. And both of us made it up. It's just, that's the kind of thing they do over and over again. One references the other. It's all the same lie. So that lie to me is getting moderately exhausting at this point. I think it's just played out. It's at some point. I mean, I just feel like we have to reach this point as a society, right? There's certain things we could just say, okay, look, let's stop poisoning the water. Let's stop poisoning the food. Let's stop poisoning the air. Those are pretty much no-brainers. We should be able to stop tomorrow. Like tomorrow, we could go and change that immediately. Like
Why are you going to wait? I'm tired of waiting, Tank. Let's do it right now.
Right now, that's a great idea. That is incredibly simple and easy. You know how you do it? You just stop doing it. It's not even. Hey, don't just. You know what? We're gonna hold off on the fluoride in the water today. Thank you for wearing your weird white outfits. Your toxic chemical outfits. Just take that anywhere else. To your house, actually, you can take it to your house and you can drink the whole thing. It's like.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into the tomorrow game.
I agree. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Yes. Today, let's stop that. Let's stop pretending like Nancy Pelosi is not just a compilation of insane babblings at this point. I mean, just ridiculousness. Saying nothing. Let's stop pretending like just because you say the word impeachment doesn't mean at some point you're not going to have to prove it, right? Because you don't get to just say something 1,000 times and we just go, oh, okay, yeah. Like, stop being, and if you are one of those people, stop that. Stop being that person, right? I feel like we could rip through a list like this and change the world overnight. Like,
yeah,
not even a big deal.
I told you about this really fantastic idea I had. It was like one of those sparks that go off, bing, while I was doing a brainstorming session on the banking with Richard in England, and we were just talking, and it just hit me, and so, but this is that creative spark, right? That once that ignites, it literally creates, the vibration, and then it's the actions that we take to move forward and make that come into reality. So this is beyond AI, right? The AI had something that they were working from. This came from nothing, right? It just pops into existence. It's it's another abundance-based model, but this is going to be fantastic. Whenever we get to that stage where we can implement this, and so we need to keep focused on moving forward and making these things happen. So I encourage everyone to make their own videos, get involved, do something. Be sure to share the link. I wonder if everyone keeps sharing. How many times I should ask people in the chat, okay, have you shared today the link? So many people say yes. So many people say no. All right, we'll put them on the spot. At least in the chat room, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we should kind of wind it down anyway right now. Thank you for the almost update. And then we'll continue tomorrow. I gotta leave here in about half an hour, so I shut it down.
Cool in the gang. I appreciate the time, man. Always good work. Everybody, have a great night. Dan, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.